What's going on, guys? Welcome to Everything Always. My name's Michael Roman, aka Allfires. Now, back when the What If animated series was first announced by Marvel Studios, it was San Diego Comic-Con 2019. It's when they were also announcing Disney Plus and Marvel TV for the first time and the beginnings of the Marvel Phase 4 slate. So not to diminish What If as an animated series at all, but compared to all that live action news, some very important questions were left for another day, like, is this series in the MCU? Real recently, some YouTubers and editorials that cover this kind of thing guessing the opposite, considering this most recent official trailer from Marvel Studios showed main characters like Tony Stark Iron Man being voiced by someone other than Robert Downey Jr. But we now have confirmation coming from an unlikely, or should I say likely source, considering his series just ended, Tom Hiddleston, confirming that What If is in the MCU. We're going to break down what he said specifically about the series, all the details included, and then talk about the greater implications for the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole going down the road when we get to the next big crossover, the possibility of seeing some of these animated variants we first saw in What If show up in live action. We're going to break it all down, but first, if you could grab the subscribe button. We're still giving away a PlayStation 5, Disney Plus subscriptions every week while the shows are live, and a ton of other MCU related giveaways. If you want to be entered to win, all you have to do, hit the subscribe button, then leave a comment down below, and if you want, stick around to the end of the video. We'll get into all the giveaway stuff again there. So Tom Hiddleston was on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, not only talking about Loki, but the upcoming What If series, and this is what he had to say about the show. Quote, "It's like, what if Loki wasn't adopted? What if Peggy Carter was the one who got the serum?" Super soldier serum is what he's referring to. "What if the Ravagers kidnapped T'Challa instead of Peter Quill? It's what if some major event in MCU history had gone the other way? What reality would we be living in now?" He then adds that although some of the key actors aren't there, many of the MCU actors will go on to voice the animated versions of themselves, and then says this, quote, "I'm intrigued because I haven't seen the whole thing, and it sets up a whole bunch of stuff in the MCU which I know nothing about." And that last part he added with a playful grin, rather coyly. We know he definitely knows a ton about it. So here's the thing, when this was first announced, I was clearly in the group that thought this was just a way for Marvel Studios to break free of the constraints of huge budget pictures. They could do whatever they wanted in animated form, get away with it, and not be really held to the MCU continuity. But as we saw just happen on the Loki series finale, the MCU has broken into a crazy multiverse, should we say a multiverse of madness, and in doing so opens the opportunity for exactly what he just said. Quote, "What if some major event in MCU history had gone the other way? What reality would we be living in now?" So this confirms that what just took place in Loki and what's happening in the MCU as a whole will be reflected during this multiversal madness sort of animated series, where we know there may be a culmination crossover event in the TV show itself called The Guardians of the Multiverse. We've already seen some promotional material for that. We've already seen some scenes from that in the most recent trailer. And if that's the case, and this truly connects to the MCU, if these are alternate parts of the multiverse, even though animated, playing out just like they would have in the MCU had things changed, that means that down the road, when we approach a major crossover, maybe not perhaps the next Fantastic Four or Avengers 5 film whenever they'll take down Kang, I'm talking about much further down the road, when a decade leads into the next saga, when we have something like a Secret Wars, when the multiverse and Battleworld come into play. That's when you can use that card, when Marvel Studios can come through with all of these alternate versions that they've set up on the animated series and possibly see some of these characters in live action. And it's an awesome way for them to not only tell alternate stories and explore infinite possibilities, as it said in the trailer, but really to keep some of these actors and actresses around and keep it fresh. Some of these actors will play, say for instance, Shuri, that we just saw there in the trailer, have a role to play in the MCU in the upcoming Wakanda Forever, and then beyond that with wherever they write the MCU. But then you can have, say, Shuri take up the mantle of Black Panther or something else separately in the multiverse, say Haley Atwell as Captain Rogers, and when we finally get to another huge crossover, they can bring these characters in. These actors get to stay in the MCU, but get to keep it fresh, play a different version of themselves. Of course, that's going to open the door wide open for things like Robert Downey Jr.'s return as Iron Man somewhere down the road, and I've always said here at the channel, if you give it enough time, that's going to look more and more like a possibility. Look, if I never thought we'd get Luke Skywalker ever back in anything, given enough time, Robert Downey Jr. back as Iron Man won't seem so impossible. This is an amazing revelation, though, about this series, because whereas we thought it was maybe just some side and ancillary fun, not as important to the MCU as the rest of these shows, this now means that everything that takes place during these cartoons, the Easter eggs, everything is MCU canon, happened somewhere at some point along the multiversal chain, and any one of these events can come into play now in the live action universe once the multiverse starts to cross over. I think there's a lot of us who have assumed that perhaps the multiverse storyline would sort of get wrapped up in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, as the name implies, but now we're seeing it's much bigger than that. While Doctor Strange is probably going to take on one of the villains that are more particular to him, as long as Kang remains at large, the multiverse is going to stay fractured. It's going to take a bigger team film, something like Fantastic Four, Avengers 5, something like a crossover to sort of end that storyline. And even when they do, that doesn't mean that the multiverse is going to become one again. Remember, they explained during Loki's first season that that isn't the natural state anyway. Most likely the multiverse will remain intact whenever they finish this, and as we just found out real recently, Kevin Feige said in an interview, they just had a huge meeting over at Marvel Studios about the multiverse. He even joked they haven't needed a whiteboard until now. They might need to bring one in. Of course, drop all the Rick and Morty jokes you want here, because there was recently a whiteboard that featured during a Rick and Morty episode, and really it's a huge pun on the writer's room, them trying to keep everything straight. Marvel Cinematic Universe is about to get infinitely complicated, no pun intended. They have to start laying down some groundwork for rules, because they really do leave a lot up to these writers, especially back we heard with Guardians of the Galaxy. They literally told James Gunn to write an intro origin story for the Infinity Stones. He got as much unilateral decision making with that as he would want. When they first gave us Thanos, they didn't really have a plan for him yet. Now we know they're working on a much higher level of looking down the road, but with this fresh idea of variants being introduced, they can really do whatever they want, explain anything they want in the MCU with the variant. And as I said, if the multiverse remains intact when they're finally finished with all this, that'll leave the door wide open to come when we finally make it to a Secret Wars far, far down the road for any of these variants we see during the animated What If series to show up in live action. And that is going to be super, super awesome. Guys, let me know all your thoughts down below. How hype are you for the What If series? And if you weren't before, does the fact that it canonically connects to the MCU make you any more excited for it? I am all ears as always. And quickly, let's get into the giveaway stuff before I let you go. We're still giving away a PlayStation 5 now at 900,000 subscribers. It is taking a lot longer to get to that subscriber mark than I thought, so we may add a couple of more giveaways in between now and then, like additional PlayStation 5s. We're also giving away subscriptions weekly to Disney Plus while the shows are live. That'll start back up in a couple of weeks with What If, and we'll also be giving away DVDs and ticket giveaways for the movies, all that sort of stuff once it comes back the rest of this year. Shang-Chi is right around the corner. If you want to be entered to win any of the future giveaways, all the same rules will always apply. Make sure you hit the subscribe button because you need to be a subscriber, then leave a comment down below. Because it's truly random, the more videos you comment on, the better chance you have of winning. The best way to keep up with the content here at the channel has always been to hit the notification bell with all notifications on. And as always, if you liked today's video, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit the like button. My name's Michael Roman. You can find me over on Twitter and Instagram at IamFires. You can also find me on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, Apple Music, wherever you find your original music under the name Allfires. Thanks so much for checking out the channel, guys, and stick around. We'll be posting again real soon.